All right, so here's what I am going to do. This is going to be a 3D tour of the MikroBench, and so we'll get started on it. Basically, it's primarily for clamping, for doing multi-board glue-ups, and then also for some joinery that I do. So let's just start. I'm going up to the tab up here. So this is the base station. Just have to change a view here a little bit. So this is what I would call the base station. It is the box itself. And so if I look at that and I go into an x-ray view, basically this is what we're seeing is the two sides, the top, and then we're seeing the T-track. So then we add tray 2, and we're doing that via this patented joinery method that I have. It's something that I came up with and then got 2 patents on it so far. But basically what happens, you're seeing that in there, and it's a knockdown joinery. So you're seeing the bolt that goes up, my threaded tenons, and then a couple of permanent GRKs. And then if we look at the other side, we're seeing the same thing here in reverse. All right, so that's the tray 2. And that one is going to be for some drivers and things like that. And then these are the holes that you're seeing in there that were done by the CNC. These are the overlays. So you're seeing a bunch of holes back here. Those have to do with lining up the clamps. These holes here are for Bessie clamps to be able to slide in there. A couple of these holes down here are for putting, these 2 upper ones are for mounting clamps up. And then the other 2 are for mounting clamps down, for like mounting the bench itself to a table. And then if we go, here's some of the uses that we're going to have. So I'm clipping on vices. So there's actually 2 vices here. The holes are already there for it in the side. So right in here, there's some holes. Now we don't really need these plates. These are some of the things I'm prototyping right now. But the plate is nice. It could be a wood plate, but it could also be done without that. Just makes it a lot easier. The idea was that I would take this plate, a steel plate, mark it, drill holes in it where the 4 bolts would go, and then make those holes with a 17/64 drill bit, and then use a 5/16 tap. But basically this is what would happen. Then you've got your clamps that can use for different kinds of purposes. Again, these are pretty much specific to some of the stuff that I do with my glue ups. That's why they're goofy shapes and everything else. Then on top would be the 18-volt drivers. These are just 3D renderings of what like for instance a Milwaukee tool would look like. This is the base of the router that I use just to basically size it up. You can kind of see how it fits in there. And then as we look at the top up there, also we're looking at the GRKs that I use on a really regular basis for my joinery. All these different types of 5/16" bolts. Here's where my threaded tenons would get stacked. Here's where the 9-foot ruler would go, a DeWalt ruler, a couple of pencils over here, a felt tip marker here, a digital calipers here, there's a speed square that would go in here, and then the Incra rule in here, the 3-inch or the 6-inch Incra rule would go in there. And then this would be for an Allen wrench. This would be for a smaller Allen wrench. And then over here we'd have the vertical or the inverted slot for Gorilla Glue. It would sit in there so that when you grab that glue, it's ready to go. And the same thing with just regular conventional wood glue. And then 2 slots for the brushes. And then here is for the hide heavy-duty scraper. So that's what tray would be about. And then it's already set to go for mounting drill presses. So in the base itself, there are 3 holes that may not be all that obvious, but they are the holes for this drill press. And the Wen drill press is what I've been using on the small ones. They're like 80-90 bucks a piece. I set them up and then with a particular bit and then just go with it and stay with it. But the other drill presses, as it turns out, have the same base. It's like they all come from the same manufacturer. So those 3 holes, like if I hide that drill press, you're going to see a hole here, here, and here, and those are the holes that are already set up for it. Now the bandsaws, it can hold up to 2 bandsaws. I don't have the holes in there for it. Basically what I was figuring is that they would, number one, the bandsaw would cantilever. This is the base of, this is the actual size of the base of the Rikon, the 10-inch, let's see once, I think it might be an 8-inch. I have to look. The bandsaw, and then Craftsman also used Rikon to make theirs, but there's 2 holes already in that base. There's 2 holes out here, I think. And then what I would do is you've got the T-track for using anything that can go with a T-track would fit right in there and clamp right down onto the what do you call it? In fact, if you notice that the spacing between the T-track is such that it's just right for that to slide in between there, okay? And then the clamps would go down on that, or you can just put it on there, use it for a template to basically drill some holes through the base itself, drill the holes, and then you can attach that with bolts. And you can see you can still use the vices at the same time. Then that's for the drill presses, and then you can also then you obviously remove the drill presses. And if you notice, we don't have a tray 2 going up right now, but this would be for the miter saw base. I happen to, for this one, this is the one I take camping, so it's the 7 1/4 Milwaukee, and this is basically the shape of it, but it would just sit on top of there, and again, using the T-track, then it would mount using some sort of clamps that you would just put into the T-track itself, some sort of bolts. So that's that, and then the clamps, what you can see here are the R&Rs, so it's R&R or RR clamp.com, I believe is what their website is. You can only buy them from them. Mine are red. You're going to see those in the video, but basically this is what the bench is designed specifically for, is to do glue ups like this. Now I used to make railings and posts and custom beds and things like that, and this is the kind of stuff that I did a lot of. And so to do that, you need a really good clamp, and you need a lot of them to really get a tight fit. I do almost all Gorilla Glue on them, but all these will fit right there. The track, they basically sit on top of the track, and you can see that little bit of an overhang right here where the lip overhangs. And then this is the last part that I'm still working on, is how to basically fasten those down. But that's what the T-track is for. That's what some of the other things are for. And there's different ways of mounting those. And you can see you can even keep tray 2 on there, which is that vertical going up, and then that way you have your fasteners if you need them, you have all your power tools, you have your glue, are all right there for you. And then that's how those would work. Those, again, the lower group of those would all be mounted onto the bench. The upper group of clamps are just basically set right on there, going down the other direction. And then this Craig would also fit on here. Really, I didn't put the holes in there because Craig over the years has come out with so many different versions that there wasn't any way to kind of align their holes with the thing. Instead, it just sets on there, and again, that's what the T-track is for. So the T-track right here would be taking a clamp that is available for T-tracks, putting it right on there, or again, taking the Craig itself, just placing it where you'd want it, use the holes that they have in their base, the one that you own, and then use that as a template to mark, and then drill holes through the top here, and then you'd be able to get at them from underneath for the Craig. And then the mounting wise, this bench will mount on like a festool table. It's all set up. That's what these spaces are for right here. There's a oval cut out here, and those will line up with the holes on a typical festool type bench. And then the Craig benches are almost identical. The Craig workbenches have their dog holes. Otherwise, any dog hole type thing, it doesn't even have to be that. It could end up just being that you place this bench or place the MikroBench up to the edge of any kind of table or whatever, and then just run a clamp under the table, and then again into this slot right here. This is a prototype. I'm going to change these to a larger circle so that there's more different types of clamps that can go in. Right now it's set up for the Craig type clamps, and that's those really small slots that'll fit right in there. And then you can also mount this on a scaffold. This would be called a painter's scaffold. There's another name for it, I have to think of it, but this is the typical stuff that I used to use a lot on log homes, so I had a bunch of them around. And on that one, what I do is I just run a board across from on the steel, mount that, and then the bench itself mounts to the that board right there. You can see how that would go in there, and the holes for that are already in the sides of the bench. That was created by the CNC, so the hole for this to match that is already there. And then this is where I've been using them a lot, is on the red carts that you get at Harbor Freight. Has these tool carts, and they're about a couple $100, you know, but they're a lot less expensive than the really expensive stuff that you'd buy, like that mechanics would buy. And you have to assemble these things, but for what you're paying, as long as you're not really overusing them, then you've got that whole area up on top, which is ideal for like the vacuum. When I'm doing glue ups and routering and things like that, I set my little portable vacuum right in there, my little Milwaukee, and then you can roll it around. And then you also have a whole bunch of drawers here for the tools themselves, bits and things like that. But they have holes in them right in here that are meant for the handles that they come with. I remove the handles, and then the MikroBench is set up to fit right on those same holes. There's again, these holes for this are already in the side of the MikroBench, and so all it takes is the bolt to go through here and one through there, and these babies mount it really well. I did admit that I found that because of the red carts, there's a little bit of a steel lip on here, and so there was a little bit of an offset. And so what I did is I used some rubber shims to just basically make up the difference in there, and that really helped a lot. So that's mounting them on a red cart. And then when we go RV camping and so on, we have the 2-inch receiver on the truck, and so I take along what's called a bed extender. You can buy those at Tractor Supply, farm at home type places, fleet farms, and they're a bed extender that you'd put into the truck bed. It's a 2-inch by 2-inch receiver, and that one, all that has to happen is, again, using the same holes that that was used on the red carts and on the scaffolding. I'll just kind of x-ray that. All right, so then if you notice that those same holes are being used for this and to mount it on there, and all that has to happen there is, once you own or buy one of these, then just take the bench, maybe temporarily clamp it or whatever, but then you would need to drill the 2 holes into the receiver itself. As you can see, there's a hole drill there, and then there would be a matching one there for the bolts to go through, and then a couple of bolts and washers, and you're good to go. And again, they mount in just a few seconds on it. So that's that. If one was building one of these, this would be the cut list for it. There's a lot going on there, and then the rest of the things on here I think they're having to do with assembly and building it and how the tenons are mounted. These are some of the templates that come. So I think that's pretty much it, other than the index. And the index is this right here. This is basically what everything is set up for. Now, this is an older one, so some of these things have changed, but this index shows where everything goes, like the threaded tenons, the GRKs, the felt tip pencils, and things like that. So if we go back though again to the base station, and really probably the one that is the most commonly used that I use is the clamps. It's that one there. And this thing really is functional. It just does all this stuff, and it's only 24 inches long by 11 inches high. So hey, thanks for checking it out. Okay, so this would be actually a very typical glue up for me, like on a post. This is a post 4.5 inches across, 4 inches high, maybe something like that, right? But that's 4 boards in there somewhere, actually 5 total when you count the caps, the black walnut caps, but that's all glue up. that's not a solid piece. So there's a lot of clamps involved. All of them fit right in here, and there's a couple of temporary things because I'm still working through some of the bugs on the table itself. But then I have some clamps that need to go down, and those fit into those slots down in there. Those are set up for Bessies. And then I want everything handy. I want everything to be here. So the typical tools that I would use, even if it's 12 volt, I get this type of battery, the kind that it can stand up on. What I don't have in there right now are some slots in between here, or some 1/4 inch to basically prevent them from going to the side. But I don't think I really need them. I can get rid of them. Now, in this one I was experimenting, and I thought the router would fit in there just great, and it does, but because I use the router a lot, and then so I wanted that hole in there for that bit and the bushing, right? And it all theoretically worked, but then I forgot about the handles on this big, on the 18 volt router, right? So that hit these guys here, right? I can deal with that. So then that's that. And then the other things that I always want handy are my hide shaper, or scraper rather, my regular glue, my Gorilla Glue, and I want those in there upside down so that they're going to flow as soon as I grab the bottle. And then I always use brushes, almost always, on my glue ups, right? And then a lot of my joinery is involved on this table too. So I've got the bolts, my 5/16 bolts, all different sizes. I've got all my GRKs right there. And then I even keep the threaded tenons. I keep a stack of those ready to go. Constantly using a 3/16 and then a 1/4 inch Allen. So I've got those. This got a little tight in here. Again, this is a prototype. And then you realize, you know, okay, that's too tight when you really get the tool in there. But I use the Inca rule a lot. I use a speed square, and then the digital caliper. I always want my 9-foot ruler, a marker, a couple of pencils. So everything is always there. Otherwise, as far as fastening it, there's some slots down here. I'm going to change that a little bit, but basically they're lined up so that if you have a festool table or a Craig table, or really any dog table that has somewhere around 4-inch on center holes, and it'll fit in there. This is for a vise that we can put on there if we want to use a vise. There's holes in there down below, all set up for drill presses, and this thing can even handle band saws. Like, let's see here once. So here's a typical, you know, drill press mounting. Here's a drill press mounting. This is the way they go. There's the 3 holes that are specifically for, and these are all standard. All the different drill presses I have, they have the exact same base. So they're just a couple holes, all ready to go. And that thing's really solid. And then you can also put like either the Craftsman, or in this case right here, the Raycon. It gets mounted right on the MikroBench like that. Now I've got this clamped on here because again I'm prototyping, but all it needs is there's a hole here already in the base, and so I'll just make the holes in the top specifically for those. And then I think what I'll do is, just for added safety, I'll probably drill holes in the drill press right around here, so that can cantilever, and that way you can then still have plenty of room on the other end to put a drill press. There's your 3 holes for the drill press. There's for the Bessie clamps. There's all kinds of other tools on different ones. This is another one, and this is all, you know, I've been using this a lot lately. Again, these are all prototypes, so there's different functions on them. This one had 3 shelves on it instead of 2. I mean, it had the main, and then it has a secondary shelf, and then it has a cup holder up there, but that kind of got in the way, so I think I'm just going to go back to 2. Normally I use oak. These are from Stair Treads. And then on that one that I just built as a prototype, I went with 1 riser like that, and I decided that's not enough by the time I start getting all that weight and that everything else on there. And then these mount, they're all set to mount like on a table like this. Excuse me, a cart. These are the US Generals, which are Harbor Freight, right? And then they have these bolt holes, or the holes that they have for their handles. They've got a handle like this on them, right? You can see one there. And all you do is you take that handle off, and then the MikroBench has these holes already set up
on the back of it. It'll slide right over that. Just take out the stuff that came with the Harbor Freight, put in the bolt, and then now you got it hanging. And they are really, really solid. The only thing that moves on these things is the cart itself. So I'm really, really pleased with that. Here's another drill press that I've got mounted on one of them. I like these little Wens for what they cost. You know, 80, 90 bucks. They're really handy. But then if I want to, I can go to my better stuff. You know, I've got like a small Rikon, right? That's an 8-inch Rikon, much better quality and all this kind of stuff. But it has the same base on it that all the rest of them do, that the Wens have. You know, so you can kind of go from there and see what all kinds of stuff you can put on just this little guy. And then I even have it set up. You can see this if you go to MikroBench. If you go to instructables.com and type in MikroBench, MikroBench, all one word, you're going to see a whole tutorial on this. And then from there, you're going to see that I've also set it up so they can mount on the back end of my pickup truck on a 2-inch receiver, bed extender, and on the scaffolding. It's set up to go on this type of scaffolding. It's called painter's scaffolding. There's another name for it. But this kind of stuff, which I have a lot of from the old days, and I mount them up on there. You can see an older version of it. But there you go. And so that is the MikroBench. And again, I'm going to get rid of, I'm not going to use the 1 post anymore. I'm going to go to 2 posts because this isn't bad, but you know, you got a lot of weight going on there and it's just too much for one little post. So there we go. All right, so I'm going to take it apart, and so she's ready to go. Okay, this is the really cool part. There you go. Not pretty on that mortise, but it again, it was a prototype, so it is what it is. Put that back in there so we don't lose it. Reaching up from underneath. There's varnish on the tenons, the threaded tenons, the metal tenons, so they're a little sticky, but actually that's okay. I'm all right with that. So then it's just a matter of pulling that bolt out. It's a longer bolt than it needs to be. That's why it's taking so long, but otherwise that's it. And then I want to put that back in there so we know where it is. Grab this guy, put it up here. Actually, it can tuck underneath as well. And then the only other thing that's holding it on right now is I had 1 clamp in here. If you're going to do a bunch of stuff, I'd probably put a couple in, but that's it. And she is ready to go.